Hey, it's Kyle here, and I know it's been a really long time since I've posted a video on this channel. Apologize about that. I had some stuff going on with work that kind of kept me busy a lot last year. I also had some computer issues that impacted how much video editing I could do at home. But also a huge impact was the changes that YouTube made last year, where basically smaller YouTubers were no longer having their videos monetized. And I fell beneath that limit, and I'm not really close enough that I was getting close to actually making it. So once I fell off the monetized list, I lost a little bit of motivation to make videos. A little ticked off at YouTube, honestly. So I decided to take a little bit of a break. But I do want to start doing videos again in 2019. Not sure how often I'll be doing them, but I did want to do some. But before I get into this video, where I talk about my 5 favorite fiction books that I read in 2018, I do want to mention, if you want to see videos from me more often, I still make videos very often on Project Nerdy, which is a collab channel I do with a few of my friends. We're currently taking a little bit of break. We usually always take January off, but we'll restart doing videos in February. So if you want to see videos about all sorts of nerdy topics, be sure to check out Project Nerdy. There should be a link in the description box below. But with that out of the way, let me talk about my 5 favorite fiction books I read in 2018. I will mention there will be a second video in this series where I do my 5 favorite non-fiction books that I read in 2018. So be sure to check that video out as well. It'll be posted a couple days after this one. And I do want to clarify one thing about these. These are just books that I read in 2018. They weren't necessarily published in 2018. Most of these books are actually fairly old. So I just wanted to clarify that. I'm not saying these books were written in 2018. I just read them in 2018. So first off, on number 5 in my list is The Monsters of Templeton by Groff. I got this book at a friend's library sale. Wasn't really familiar with the author. Actually, honestly, the name that caught my eye at the sale was kind of the unique look of the cover. Maybe check out to see the description of the story to see if it might be interesting. And it did sound kind of interesting, and I'm really glad that I read it because it was a very unique, interesting storyline. Basically, the book is set in this town of Templeton, New York, which is basically a fictional version of Cooperstown, New York, which is obviously a real city. It's actually where the Baseball Hall of Fame is at. And the author actually grew up in the real town, so she basically kind of took some elements from the real town and transformed it into this fictional town of Templeton. And the basic plot is the main character, which is kind of based a little bit on the author, after having some issues come up at college that kind of forces her to come back home and kind of seek shelter from her mom. I don't want to get all the specifics, I don't want to ruin any of the plot points. But basically when she gets back to Templeton, she's dealing with all these kind of traumas that come back to her. She didn't really like living in Templeton. She really was excited when she moved away, and now she's moving back. She's having to reconnect with all like her old high school friends, family drama and stuff like that. A key element of the book is the fact that she never really knew her dad. Her mom had always told her her dad was a result of kind of like a one-night stand when she was a hippie, and that was just always the kind of story she grew up with, and she kind of embraced it. But when she comes back, her mom informs her that she actually had lied to her, and her real dad actually lives in Templeton. And so then the daughter makes it her mission to try to figure out who her dad is. The mom doesn't want to tell her. She kind of confessed that secret in a moment of weakness, and now she doesn't want her daughter to uncover the secret. So the daughter spends most of the book researching the town archives to kind of discover who her real dad is. This entire element, this sounds very straightforward book. There's a very mystical element to it, because at the same time all this is going on, this town is situated on a big lake. Kind of a giant Loch Ness monster-like creature suddenly shows up and has died and kind of floats to the surface of the lake. And so now this town is being swarmed by all this national media and the scientific community trying to figure out where this like lake monster came from. And the kind of book deals with like, does this town have a supernatural connection to this monster and all this type of stuff. It's kind of a very interesting, unique book. I'd really recommend it. So The Monsters of Templeton by Lauren Groff. My fourth favorite book, fiction book I read in 2018 is The Last Colony by John Scalzi. It is the third book in the Old Man's series. I read a couple of these. I read book number 2 and this one in 2018. Of the two I read, this was my favorite. Really enjoyed it. John Scalzi has quickly become one of my favorite authors since I started reading him a few years ago. His books are always very interesting. They're very interesting plot, very interesting characters, and they always have a great sense of humor, even in kind of serious moments. He really just makes his books very funny and very entertaining and very interesting. Since this is the third book in the series, I don't really want to get into the plot too much because it obviously spoils a lot of the first and second book in the series, and there's still a few more books. I have all the books in the series. I just haven't had a chance to read them all yet. But if you really enjoy sci-fi, I'd really encourage you to check out any book by John Scalzi. In my opinion, he's one of the best sci-fi authors around today. So The Last Colony by John Scalzi was my fourth favorite book in 2018. My third favorite book in 2018 is a kind of unique addition to the list, and this is actually an entire series. It's the Young Jedi Knight series in the Star Wars books. These are like young adult, almost like, I would say, like books aimed towards middle school age kids. Like it's kind of like geared towards like these are the first like novels you're reading. And I read these books when I was roughly that age. They actually came out when I was in middle school. It really was like the first like real books I'd ever read. I was always a huge Star Wars fan. So, I really became obsessed with these books because the characters are the same age as me and stuff like that. So a year ago at another Friends of the Library sale, somebody had donated the complete set of the series, which is 14 books. And I think when I was in high school or college, I'd actually sold my books. My family always had yard sales, so a lot of times I would sell stuff to try to make money, to buy stuff with. And I didn't really think about the fact that I was collecting books. I just sold the series, and a few years after that, I always regretted I'd got rid of those books. So when I saw a complete set, honestly in great shape, I was like, oh, I have to buy this. So I got it, and I reread the entire series, I think over the course of probably about a month. I read them very quickly after I purchased the books, actually. So my third favorite book is really the entire series. I decided not to pick out just one book in the series. So this book I have right here that I'm holding up, Heirs of the Force, just happens to be the first book in the series. Now I said there's 14 books. It's not really the entire series is non-stop 14 books. It's basically chopped up into, I think, 3 or 4 storylines, if I remember correctly. And basically there's like a 3 or 4 book storyline, a 3 or 4 book storyline, a 3 or 4 book storyline, and the last one is like a 2-book series. So it's like a big series composed of several smaller series. But the basic idea is the main characters are the children of Han Solo and Princess Leia, and they have Jedi talents. Luke Skywalker has started up a Jedi Academy, and they're at the Jedi Academy. They make friends with other young Jedis, and then they have all sorts of adventures. So they are the main characters. Like Luke and Han and Chewie, Princess Leia, all those people are kind of like supporting characters, and they'll be in some of the books. But they're never the main characters. The kids really drive the storyline. So it very much is a young adult Star Wars series. So really enjoyed this. Even rereading it, obviously when I was reading it, it's clearly geared towards kids. Like, the plots are a little bit simpler, they read very quickly, but it's still entertaining. So if you're a big fan of the old Star Wars Expanded Universe and you never read the series, check it out. It's like a quick read, since they are geared towards kids, you can knock out, like I said, I knocked out the 14 books in like 4 to 6 weeks. It was a really quick read. So, and for me, it was a real blast from the past. It really connected me back to like when I was a little kid. Like these were like the first real books I'd ever read. So, the Young Jedi Knight series is number 3rd on my list. Number 2 is Iron Gold by Pierce Brown. I was a huge fan of the Red Rising series of books, and this was kind of the newest book and kind of restarting the series, I guess the next storyline, the next sub-series within this world that Pierce Brown's created. Really enjoyed it. One element of it that I really liked is what I felt like was one of the strongest elements of the Red Rising series is Pierce Brown is an amazing world builder. And I always love that element. I'm a huge fan of authors building these new worlds, establishing like the backgrounds, the history, the cultures, the religions, all the dynamics that go into this like solar system wide storyline is utterly fascinating. He's great at that. He's really great at characters and stuff too. This is very much, if you're into sci-fi, military fiction, you'll really enjoy the Red Rising series. Again, I don't really want to get into the plot details of this one, much like the John Scalzi books. It's just a book, several books into the series. I don't want to ruin the first book. So if you've never read Red Rising by Pierce Brown, I'd strongly encourage you to read it. And I think if you read it, you'll get hooked and eventually make your way to Iron and Gold. And I know I'm looking forward to the next book in this series because I've really enjoyed all the books so far. And my favorite fiction book that I read in 2018, not surprisingly, is a Star Wars book. And if you've been a fan of this channel, you know that my favorite Star Wars character of all time is Grand Admiral Thrawn, which is a book character created by Timothy Zahn. I absolutely love that. Not only is it one of my favorite Star Wars books, but Timothy Zahn's books set on Thrawn are some of my favorite books of all time. So since Disney's taken over Star Wars, they gave, I guess, Timothy Zahn permission to kind of relaunch the Thrawn series. So this is the second book that he's been able to write since Disney took over with Thrawn as the main character. So Thrawn Alliances is really cool because it basically comes up with this situation that I think anybody in the fan of the original series is always curious about, like what sort of interaction would have Thrawn had with Darth Vader. So this entire book is basically about Thrawn and Darth Vader basically almost having like a buddy cop type of storyline where they are partnered together by the Emperor, forced to try to solve this situation. It is very interesting to see how these two awesome characters, but are so different, go along and coexist with each other. Because at the same time they're trying to serve the Emperor, Thrawn and Vader don't necessarily see eye to eye because they both have their own very different ways they want to accomplish stuff. Especially Vader, absolutely hates Thrawn and wouldn't mind killing him. Thrawn is not really that type of person, but he very much understands that he wants to accomplish stuff very differently than Darth Vader does. So I really enjoyed the book. So if you're a fan of Star Wars books and Thrawn in the past, and you haven't read some of the new Timothy Zahn books on Thrawn, I'd really encourage you to check out his new books, especially Thrawn Alliances. I saw Timothy Zahn speak at DragonCon in 2018, and this book had just came out, so he talked a lot about it. At that time, there wasn't another Thrawn book on the timeline because he has to get permission from Disney, and since they've been using Thrawn in some of the cartoons, basically the cartoons have first dibs, and he has to kind of wait till the cartoons are done with them before he can write another book. So at the moment, there's not another one on the publishing schedule unless an announcement's been made recently, but I'm hopeful that a Thrawn book will come out sometime soon because I always love reading any book where Thrawn is a character. So those are my 5 favorite fiction books of 2018 that I read. In the comment section below, please let me know what were some of the better books you read in 2018. I'm always looking for suggestions on some stuff to read, so let me know what were some of your favorite books. And remember also to check out my video where I talk about my 5 favorite non-fiction books that I read in 2018. Hope you enjoyed the video. If you haven't yet, be sure to subscribe to the channel, like and comment on this video, all that good stuff, and I'll see you the next time.